For anyone that doesn't know, I'm Swinford. I'm a board member on the Upper Captiva Civic Association board. And I've sort of made it a thing this year to have a few town halls to try to bring together informational sessions that we view are in the interest of the island. We've done one before with the Sheriff's Department. We did a couple earlier this year regarding the Safe Harbor Marinas project that was in the works that is now not happening to the scale that was proposed. And I've been talking to Trisha Dorn with LCEC for a few months, and she had let us know about this project that they're about to start on island with basically replacing most of the electrical infrastructure on the island, and thought it'd be a great idea to have her and her team on to take us through what that project entails, how big it is, and how it will affect all of us. So I'm going to turn it over to Trisha, let them do their presentation, and then at the end we'll have a Q&A so anyone can ask questions. So until that point, if we can all be on mute so we don't have background noise, that would be great. And Trisha, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Swin. Yes, I'm Trisha Dorn, Key Account Executive with LCEC, and we have had many conversations over the months, and what a great idea to have this opportunity to share with our project with all of you. So I'm going to turn this over to Marshall Mills, and who is going to present this presentation to you all to let you know what we have planned on your island. So Marshall, you want to go ahead and get started with your presentation?
Certainly. Good evening, everyone. I'm hoping that at this point you see my screen. Perfect.
Yep.
Well, good evening. Thank you very much for having us tonight. Like Trisha said, we've had this project rolling for a while now, and we're getting ready to go live, if you will. So we thought it would be a great time to bring you all up to speed a little bit with the project. So tonight, as you know, Trisha's with us. Keith Lamon, the lead distribution designer, is also online, and Paul Owen, who is our environmental specialist with Dex Bender. They are our environmental consulting firm that we've utilized. And so I hope to just keep this rather, it's a pretty short presentation, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So with that being said, let's go for it. The agenda is pretty straightforward. We're going to review the overall scope of the project. We have a phased approach for this rebuild. Then we'll talk through some of the environmental concerns, specifically the Gopher tortoise mitigation. This is one of those that going into it, I knew was going to be a challenge, but boy, I did not realize how many of those little Gopher tortoises are out there. So it's a beautiful thing, but we've got to deal with it on quite a large scale. So, as you may or may not know, we did replace the underwater cable supplying the island back in 2018, 2019 time period. That was a very large undertaking, about two and a half miles of cable coming from what we call Upper Captiva to North Captiva. And so that was quite a project, all underwater, a lot of dredging and a lot of work planning on that one. Well, I'm not going to be the bearer of any news to you guys. You felt the pain in 2020 and some of the outages. And so it really enlightened us a bit. Myself being the supervisor of protection, control, reliability is I got a little piece of my heart. I've been in reliability most of my career of 20 plus years in utilities. And so I actually approached management with a couple items, and it turned into a couple really big items. So in 2021, we established a multi-year project and began planning and designing a complete rebuild of North Captiva due to the aging infrastructure. After a couple trips out there, we basically we knew that this was going to be a big undertaking, and so we took a full year to plan it. And the idea is to replace the underground infrastructure, cable conduit and above ground enclosures. And, we'll end up replacing some transformers, but for the most part, if they're still humming, that's good for us. Like I said, we're going to take a phased approach, and phase 1 is designed and ready to start construction in the first quarter of next year. We are indeed finalizing some of the logistics, with regards to the manpower, how we're going to do it. Are people going to come out and live on the island, or are we going to be coming in each day and those type of things? On top of that, we've got permitting that we're still working on with the Florida Wildlife Commission for the Gopher tortoises, and to finalize some of the plans for that, what we're going to do. So when I talk about this phased approach, your beautiful little island is tucked away in a location where, as you know, we're going to fly it in or boat it in. And so they definitely made a pretty complex planning phase of this. That's why we decided to break it up into 4 chunks. To be straight up, we've done this before in other places in little pieces, but this is a big chunk. And so phase 1, we're going to start at the south end of the island and work our way north. And so phase 1 is going to include just the first four streets on the south end, and that's when we're going to start looping in 3-phase and providing single-phase feeds and additional reliability to the south end. So basically, that's Panama Shell Drive up to Conch Shell Drive. And like I said, we anticipate starting that in the first quarter of next year. I mean, I hope that anything's not delayed, but I'll be straight up. We don't have the final permitting, and so we're keeping our eyes wide open with it. But as soon as we get those permits, we will start moving dirt. That being said, the second phase will go straight up to Bartlett Parkway, and then phase 3, and so we'll work these consecutively, and consequently, the design of phase 2 will be, we'll be finishing up the design well before we finish the construction of phase 1. And so we'll be overlapping these areas a little bit, but we want to try and minimize any downtime in between mobilization of the crews and everything else. So once we get this going, it is going to be a full-scale operation for some time. So like I said, phase 3 is going to be from Bartlett up to the south of the airport, and we got a nice little delineation there with the airport, and so then that we'll finish it off by going north of the airport. And so like I said, the big picture is replacing in kind the existing infrastructure, but we are going to add some looping and additional switching to improve the reliability. That's definitely one of the, this was built a long time ago, and it was very economic when they built it. And from a reliability standpoint, a little extra work on this end, and it will do wonders for the long-term reliability of the island. So I wanted to show, as I we went through the island quite extensively in the beginning of the year, and we literally opened up every enclosure on the island. Well, I take that back. There was a couple that we deemed actually not safe to open. And so I wanted to show you a couple pictures of what we found, though. Several of the locations, they're very old style enclosures, and they don't give us any room to switch in. And for that matter, there's several of them that have already how do we put it, experienced a fault. And so I just call it, there's been some electrical interference, if you will. That picture on the top left, that enclosure, E393, has actually had 4 faults that I know of. And so it's felt the pain of the years, and you know, we really need to get through there and rebuild stuff and make it, well, make it look like this pretty one. So this is our we have one enclosure on the island of this style, and it was put in actually during a failure in 2020 in order to facilitate restoration. So this is our infamous 20057, at least, but this is one of the newer designs. It's a much more reliable enclosure, more room to switch, and overall, we hope to make you know, nearly all the enclosures look like this one. And so it's like I said, there's several advantages, and safety being one of the big ones of this new type of enclosure we have. So with that being said, let's talk about some of the concerns during construction. You know, we're going to try our best to avoid outages, but we're going to have a need for some outages, specifically during the final cutovers. You know, we're going to send out notifications beforehand, but we highly recommend checking your contact information, making sure we have emails and phone numbers that are up to date. Because what we'll normally do is we'll try to give 72 hours notice on these outages. And at times we may need, with shorter notices, we'll be knocking on doors and putting door hangers, and those will be very localized, if you will. But just making sure that your contact information is up to date is going to be vital throughout this whole process, because we will be utilizing that information quite readily. You know, even be sending some flyers out, I believe, throughout it, and making sure to keep you up to date on the flow of the project. So once again, yeah, I can't emphasize enough, make sure your contact information is up to date with us. Now, we're going to try and minimize the impact from construction, but we're bound to have some areas where we're going to require some minor road closures, and we're going to keep them at a minimum. But as you know better than I've only been out there a few times, but some of those roads get pretty narrow, and when there's any type of construction or any type of work, it gets pretty busy to get around. So like I said, we're going to try hard with signage and you know, just with normal construction techniques of notifying you and making sure our cones are up everywhere. We'll minimize the impact, but overall, I just ask that you bear with it, because the end product is going to be well worth it. And like I said, signage is going to be vital for us, and it's going to be used extensively to keep everyone up to speed with what's going on. So environmentally, this has been a challenge across the board. That's why we brought in the professionals with Dexbender. They've helped us from the get-go. We've done some extensive surveys already of the Gopher tortoises, specifically in phase 1 area. And I'll show you a map in a minute here. But on top of that, we've worked with the Florida Wildlife Commission, and for that matter, the state, to obtain the permits and to get a game plan. You know, it does look like we'll be building a silt fence barrier along the southern border, and, you know, pending approval from FWC on this. The game plan at this point is to simply relocate the gopher tortoises to the south end of the island onto state land. And we've actually surveyed a huge portion of that area as well as required from FWC. They have a density per acre on the gopher tortoises that we must maintain. And so we're working diligently with them to meet their desired permit rules, if you will. And so we also want to minimize the impact to these little guys because, well, some of these big guys, some of these tortoises get really big. But the bottom line is we know these guys have their own little internal compasses. And the last thing we want to do is have to take them off the island and relocate them off the island. We want to be able to keep them as close as possible to their home and minimize the impact on them. So on top of that, that last bullet is an important one as well. In order to move these gophers, we actually have to go in and address them at the burrow and dig. Some of these excavation is going to be quite extensive in order to get them. And for safety, we may require small outages during that time period as well. Now we will once again, we're going to minimize the time period, but it's for the safety of the crews that are doing that. So it's going to be real important. And with that, I wanted to show the map to give you an idea of, the type of surveys that we're doing and the extensiveness of it. Like I said, this is just the southern 4 streets, and I'm not sure how well you can see everything, but this identifies 39 different potentially occupied boroughs, and each one of those will be addressed on an individual basis. And so what's necessary is a 25-foot buffer around all work zones and any area we plan on doing work has been made and surveyed. And so we spent, Paul and his crew have spent an incredible amount of time, documenting these efforts and making sure that we're on par with what FWC is needing. And for that matter, just to, we want to make sure that we do everything in our power to treat these little guys with respect and do our thing with it, still get the job done. So like I said, each of the areas, this is just a sample survey of the first zone, but each zone we go through will be doing the exact same thing, and the mitigation efforts will be along those lines. So with that being said, a little summary of it all, like I said, we have a phased approach with the first phase to begin in the first quarter of next year. It is a basic complete infrastructure rebuild, 7.5 miles of cable total, and we're going to be replacing about 5 of it, about 5 miles of cable. There's a total of 39 enclosures, and I envision probably 28 to 29 of those being replaced. Like I said, starting on the south end of the island, moving north in stages. Tricia Dorn's going to be our main point of contact. I'm sure she'll have my direct number and Keith's direct number. She always has them. But if there's absolutely, anything we can do to make it easier, to make it better, she's your first point of contact. But we're definitely here to work with you through this project. And with that, Swen, I open it up to you and the questions.
Awesome. Great information. Yeah, wow. I wasn't even, obviously this is the first time I'm seeing the presentation. I wasn't even privy to how big this project is. That's quite a project. I'm certain that this is going to open up a lot of questions. I've got several myself, but I'm not going to hog them all.
I have a question.
Yep. Go ahead. Who was that?
I see 3 hands up, so I'll
Yeah,
just,
let's do that.
I mean, if you,
Let's have John.
if you like,
Mayhoff.
just go.
Let's go John first.
Yeah, thanks to LCEC for doing this project. That it's overdue and the island really needs it. Like seriously, I know it's a big undertaking. So most of all, thank you guys. One is when you do the cutovers, how long is the outage expected? Like, is there gonna be over a day or two, or is it a few hours? Like, what do you think the outage on the cutovers will be?
Those will be very, I'm hoping rather brief, less than 2 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I said, this is a new undertaking for us, this large scale. We hope to learn a lot on the phase 1, but we definitely anticipate minimizing outages. Well, not just anticipate, we're going to plan.
That's fine. I was expecting like a day or 2 outage or something, but a few hours, that's for us out there, that's nothing. You know what I mean? Like that's just
Exactly.
We had a lot of those in 2020.
Yeah. And then my second question is, I know you guys are using these new boxes and these new hardwares, but considering the north end of the island is basically a swamp, if it rains even a little bit, will this help at all in minimizing outages?
Yes, some of the issues we had on the north end of the island, I mean, are just non-preventable, the amount of water that was up there.
Okay.
But yeah, these new structures, they're, I mean, it's designed to be underwater to some extent. Now, for how long, that's a whole different story. But it will definitely improve the reliability due to water.
Okay, and then my last question, I promise. The feed from the main power feed, you said it comes from Captiva mainland. Is there a second feed or there's only one feed to our island?
There's only one feed.
And that's from the Captiva mainland then?
That's correct.
Okay, cool. All right,
So,
just for clarity.
I have 2 quick follow-ups before we move to the next person with
Thank you,
John.
Mark, by the way. Thank you.
So
You're
one
welcome,
follow-up to
John.
that is on the cutover outages, how localized are those when they happen? Will that be, a certain number of homes per street during an outage, or would it be a whole street at one point? How localized would those outages be?
We're definitely going to try our best to keep those very localized. That could impact one complete street. It could impact just those customers off of one transformer. I know that there's a couple pretty long runs that we're going to be adding. So I would say that the whole street being impacted is going to be pretty, yeah, I think that will be happening. But like I said, that's good. Those are going to be minimized and short in duration.
Great. One more question, just because John brought it up with the feed coming from Captiva. I think it'd be great for the community to understand the current build and where it'll go, because I think most of us realize when there are power outages, there are 2 distinct sections of the island that one may go out and the rest are up, or both go out. So if there's only one main feed coming, is there a separate sort of dual circuit that feeds one section of homes and then a second section of homes right now? And then will that change after this?
Yes, right now, right now it's not looped. We have 3-phase cable that goes virtually around the island, but there's no capability to tie in adjacent phases. And so if one chunk goes out, there's not switching capability today. And so with the new build, we're going to be developing a full 3-phase loop. And if I can I guess I'll share my screen again, because I can go to one slide here and probably really explain things. Each color on here depicts a different phase, A, B, or C. And so along the black cable coming around the outside is three-phase cable. But as you can see on a lot of these, it doesn't go clear across from one side to the other. So what we're doing on this project is we're going to pull the cable clear across and include additional infrastructure so that it makes a loop clear across, so it could be fed by either direction on each of these streets. You're virtually going to double the reliability capabilities for every house on the island. So, like I said, this first phase, we spent a whole lot of extra time planning not just this phase, but the big picture for the whole island. And so this outer loop will be a true loop. Now, I can't, this cable coming in, I'm sorry to tell you, but it's going to be a single feed coming in. There's nothing I can do about that at this stage. That is millions and millions of dollars and way different concept to try and change. But the reliability within the island is going to be a lot better. So I hope that explains it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Next we have Ann Linder.
Yeah, thanks, Swin, and thanks, Marshall, for the presentation. My question for you is primarily around restoration. So when you talk about relocating the Gopher tortoises, as well as, you know, if everything's underground, obviously there's going to be a lot of things that are dug up. When does that restoration happen, and sort of what does it look like?
I guess I'm not quite, I mean, we're going to be in an area and we're going to take care of it right then and there.
Okay.
I mean, we're not going to be, if we leave holes open overnight, then they'll be marked off and they'll be blocked off. I mean, we won't be, you know, leaving anything non-secure for any length of time. Yeah. So when you say restoration, I'm hoping very much throughout this project that we're not leaving anybody out overnight. There's definitely no plans at this stage from an outage standpoint.
That's super helpful. Thank you. And then I guess the other question I have is, you know, a lot of these, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but a lot of the lots are still unoccupied. Are you prioritizing the lots that have homes on them, or is it just all being done based on location?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Ann, because that was one of my, you know, we got to plan for the future because, as you know better than I, those lots are filling up. But we're dealing with the existing infrastructure, and we're starting at the south and moving to the north. So from a priority standpoint, it's just within that phase. Now, at each of the, you know, for phase one, we've definitely looked at starting on the westward side, and you know, we're still in the very early planning stages of that. But yeah, we're not prioritizing based on a lot being there or not. It's the overall plan, and it's just to get it, you know, get it all, we have to get it all done. So we're starting at the south and moving north.
Okay, thanks for that, Marshall. And again, thanks for the heads up. It's very helpful.
You're very welcome.
All right, next, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Swin, and thanks, Marshall, and the other folks from LCEC for giving this presentation. It really is helpful for us. I'd like to assume for a minute, and you can maybe tell me I'm right or wrong when I'm done, but I think when the original electrical infrastructure was done, there was probably extensive surveys done, and the electrical was placed at the edge of the access way easements on the properties. I believe that that's correct. And again, you can confirm or deny, but are you all planning to put the new infrastructure back on the original alignments? Because as everybody out here knows, over the years, the roads have wandered one direction or the other. And so I'm curious how that will be addressed.
Michael, that's a very good question. And that's something that I'm not sure if I can answer entirely by myself, but to the best of my knowledge, we did a lot of research into the easements and have not been able to find a lot of details. And like you said, the surveying that we have done, things have drifted a bit. And so our plan is to go back in the original location of everything right now as much as possible. There are some that, like, we have one enclosure that I'm positive we have to move because it's adjacent to a well. So we'll be working with that homeowner to get an easement or to get permission to move it back a bit. So those are all going to be addressed on an individual basis as we come across them. But yes, to answer your question, we're going to be putting it back where it exists now. The majority of these enclosures will not be moving. I know of two that we've looked at that we're definitely going to have to move. One of them's, like I said, adjacent to a well. And when I mean adjacent, it's less than 2 feet. So that's not good for 25 kV electrical.
Right. That makes sense, Marshall. I appreciate that. So let me give you my opinion on this. In some cases, then the electrical is located underneath or even behind people's landscaping and even hardscaping. And so you talk for a minute about your installation methods. I don't understand if you're trenching new cable or directional boring new cable or jacking new cable or what have you. Can you talk about the installation methods and then talk also for a minute about what you expect from homeowners in terms of their landscaping or hardscaping?
Yes, once again, great question. So we have an antiquated infrastructure. What we found is the cable, we put most of the cable in conduit originally, but some of that conduit is not any good anymore. And so we anticipate, going in, we're going to try and be able to pull the cable. We're going to try and be able to replace the cable in kind. If we cannot, then directional boring is the next best option. And so we have, a plan for extensive directional boring, especially when it comes to those new runs of cable to develop the looping. That will virtually all be directional bored. We take the landscaping and the hardscaping pretty serious. And with regards to, we know you've worked hard to make it look good. And so we're going to minimize the impact, and we'll be coming back and cleaning things up afterwards. I hope that answers your question, Michael, or at least gives you an idea.
Yeah, Marshall, that's great. Thanks a lot. I probably have more questions, but I'll give somebody else a chance here while everybody's on. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, hi Marshall. So I've got a couple of questions, follow up on a few of those. Hey, whoever just came on, if we can go on mute for a second. Mark, I think it might be you. Thanks, buddy. So you talk about the first phase basically being first quarter of 2022, and this being a multi-year project. So knowing, you're going to probably run into some unknowns. You're going to have weather challenges at some point and other things. How long do you anticipate right now this being? Do you view each of those phases being a quarter, or do you feel this likely stretches into 2023?
I'm a realist, Sven. When I approached management with this and we came up with a game plan, the big picture, with the uncertainties, we made it a multi-year project.
Yeah.
So if everything, meaning it's definitely going to go into 2023.
Right.
I really hope that, we're able to tackle it and phase one goes well and we get it done within 3 to 4 months. But as you guys know, the logistics of just working on the island in and of itself, bringing everything with a boat and a barge is going to be a challenge. And so, like I said, realistically, I see it going into 2023. And hopefully, we can really minimize the impact at each of these phases. So.
Cool. One quick follow-up on the Gopher tortoises. Do I understand correctly, just the 39 burrows that you showed us the slide of, that's just in the phase one streets, the first 4 streets. So, and I heard correctly that the plan pending permitting with FWC and everything is to relocate those to the state land. And so across this project, we're probably going to have 100 plus Gopher tortoise burrows relocated to state land and no longer on our part of the island. Is that correct?
Well, kind of, because I think as we move north, we haven't surveyed up north, but I think as we move north, there's less burrows. But on top of that, as we move into like phase 3, it's going to be opened up again down below. So those tortoises, I anticipate moving back into their old homes, if you will, or into that old area. But yeah, initially the idea is just to keep them safe, put them over into state land. And like I said, we're most likely putting that silt fence up at that southern end and, just go from there with it.
Got it. Cool. I'll let others ask. I've got a few more questions, but again, I don't want to hog it. So other questions out there?
I don't know how to raise my hand. I have a question.
You go right ahead.
Okay, it's Marlene Fox. I know in the beginning you asked everybody to make sure they've given you their email, and that's kind of I don't know if everybody's going to know that, or it might be a little bit of a chore. So I'm thinking if you keep the UCCA involved in everything, then anybody who wants to join the UCCA will be informed on everything. It'll give us more members, and then everybody doesn't have to take it on their own responsibility to put their email in.
Well, Marshall, weren't you talking about LCEC account email?
Yes, I was.
Yeah. So I'll jump in and take that real quick. So Marlene and everyone, we'll definitely, UCCA and really any other, organization on the island will be trying to pull into this. So there's multiple levels of communication. So, I'll be working with Tricia and whomever else. And so we'll be pushing that communication out through UCCA. We'll go to Safety Harbor Club and try to get that out. We'll go to the fire district, try to get it out, as well as encouraging everyone, obviously we have there are multiple Facebook groups and stuff, trying to get the word out to everyone to get to their LCEC account, update their emails, update their phone, to really just keep everyone as informed as possible. So we'll definitely make that a high goal.
But my question is, can we go on the UCCA website and get all that information without going on Lee County? Like there's a power outage at 2:00 or you're going to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Marshall, you have to tell us. I don't know that the LCC is going to stop down and reach out to us on every communication to get it out there first. When they decide they need to send a notice that there's going to be a power outage in 72 hours, you guys are probably just going to email and text accounts. Do I have that?
Yeah.
Probably right.
Yeah, we have an automated system that does that, and so basically we enter the transformer or the outage location via electrical circuit standpoint, and it gets the customer listing based on the connected transformers. But I mean, Marlene, we're going to do our best to communicate everything on a regular basis, and I'll work with Tricia to maybe come up with some type of bulletin board, if you will, with the UCCA. But yeah, when it comes to the outages, the best form of communication is going to be a phone call,
Yeah.
and through the app. That's the best and most reliable. We want to make sure that through Smart Hub and the other items, you get the notification in a timely manner.
So,
The only other question, oh, sorry, but the
so,
only.
so, hey, so Marlene, just know on the UCCA website, we did have until just recently, because of other things over, like moving it off, we did have a place where you can go to check for existing outages with
Okay.
LCEC. That wouldn't do the planning thing. They're going to, have certain outages coming up, but it did give us that, like, you can go there and look online to see what on the coverage map where it's out. So we'll certainly have that back up.
Great. The only other question I had was, I know if somebody buys a lot and decides to build, they have to pay so much to relocate the tortoises. Is LCEC paying to relocate the tortoises? And also, I personally don't want them off island. So that's another question. Who makes the decision as to how they're relocated and if you have to pay for it?
So that's a great question, Marlene. What we're diligently working with FWC to not have to move them off the island. That cost is, we've got estimates on it, and it's a lot. It's between $6,000 and $7,000 per tortoise to move them off the island. It's going to be costly enough to keep them on the island, and that will be absorbed by LCEC. So when it comes to relocating at a new lot, that's still at the cost of the customer. That has nothing to do with us. But like I said, as part of this project, we anticipate moving a lot of tortoises down south, and just the efforts to do that and get the permits in place and everything else, we're going to be absorbing the cost of that. So right now, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, okay. So if you're running through my land, putting wire in or whatever, and I have 2 tortoises, who assumes the responsibility of paying to move them?
I'll dive in real quick. Go ahead, Marshall. Yeah, I was just going to say, if it's LCEC work, yeah, if it's LCEC work that has to be done and they have to be moved, then it's LCEC. Wouldn't that be correct, Marshall?
Yes, exactly. If it's part of this project and it's part of our planned work, And it's in the surveys that I was showing you, that's definitely, you know, at our cost. And we'll be taking care of those tortoises.
Okay.
Alternatively, if I decide to build a new home on a parcel I've purchased in phase 3 and they're on phase 1 and I find a burrow, I'm going to have to pay to move that. It's not part of their project yet.
Exactly.
So I have a quick question since we started talking about some costs. Marshall, you mentioned that LCEC is picking up the cost of this stuff. So is there any future impact on us in our electric bills? Any fee that we're going to be seeing that covers this over a longer period of time, and or the construction contribution fee that people pay when they do new construction?
No, we're not, you know, we're a nonprofit organization, so it's definitely not going to raise rates or anything like that. We haven't raised rates in a very long time. Trisha can probably, I've been with the company, next week will be my 10-year anniversary on the 13th, and rates have not changed since I've been here. So
It's been 14
yeah.
years.
There we go. I'm absolutely amazed with it, because I come from a big IOU on the West Coast when it's a rate-based type company. And so, yeah, I've always been amazed with the no rate increases here.
Sorry. Kill that. Christy?
Yes, I was just wondering, when you say there were 39 boroughs on the south side, does that mean that all 39 boroughs will be relocated? Or that's just how many there are and they're not necessarily in your line of construction that will have to be removed? I'm a little worried about the turtles being all on the south end.
No, I understand, and very good question. One thing I tried to clarify is those are, we call them potentially occupied boroughs. So at this point, all we know is that there's a hole, and we don't know until we investigate further if it's occupied or not. So yeah, well, that'll be part of the process. So,
Hey, Marshall.
I don't know, Paul.
Yeah, Marshall,
Paul, you can speak to that.
Yeah, so this is Paul Owen. I'm with Dexter Associates. I'm an environmental consultant. We've done hundreds and hundreds of Gopher tortoise relocations in the last year alone. So when we say potentially occupied Gopher tortoise burrow, that means that is a regulated burrow. And the 39 boroughs that were identified in this first phase are boroughs that are within 25 feet of any work area, which is the requirement by state law. So these boroughs by state law, they have to be excavated, and all tortoises must be relocated out of harm's way to allow LCEC to do their work. So these tortoises, whichever ones we find, which we expect anywhere between 0.3 and 0.5 of an occupancy rate. So of the 39, maybe we'll have between 10 and 20 gopher tortoises are actually there. Those will be moved to the south to state lands. That's the current plan. We're working with the state land managers to allow that to happen. So as Marshall already mentioned, you know, these tortoises, they've got an internal GPS. They somehow know where the direction and where their burrow is. So this will just be temporary. We'll move these tortoises at each phase down, you know, to the state lands, and they'll be kept out of harm's way by a silt fence, which will be buried, that will keep them down that way. We expect that most of them, once the silt fence is removed after each phase, that these tortoises will move back to where they originally were or close to it. That's the expectation.
That's great info, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions out there?
I have a question. I
Oh,
don't know how to
go
wave,
ahead.
so hey. Thanks to everybody that put this together. Great information. Once the new boxes have been installed, I guess there were, I don't know how many, like over 100, 200, something like that. Do we have to keep visibility and keep it clear so whenever the electric company is here, they can easily spot it? Because I know that all the old boxes, there's trees growing over, and that was one of the problems because the electric company couldn't find them.
Sorry, I got myself muted there, but yeah, it's definitely preferred to keep them clear. The one thing we have that we didn't have probably 20 years ago is really good GPS. And so a lot of times we're able to, I mean, based on our little magic gadgets, we can find them. But yeah, it's definitely preferred to keep them clear. Especially there's some enclosures, little pull boxes. There's different types of boxes, if you will. And if they're switching boxes, then we'll put signage on it to keep clear 5 feet on all sides. And so those are the ones we really need to keep clear from a reliability standpoint. But overall, yes, it's nice to have them as clear as possible.
Awesome. Marshall, I actually have another question. It's a little bit of a follow-up to Michael's and sort of the potential damage to landscaping and or people who have pavers. So our sand roads here are fairly sensitive, and our fire district takes the lead on sort of managing the roads and keeping it mainly safe and clear for the fire trucks to be able to come through. But many of the roads have had extensive work in sort of the buildup of the road. Will you guys be coordinating with them as work's being done? I'd hate to see a road sort of torn up and then just sort of packed back down, but not in the right way that the fire district perhaps had it before, to because we've got to have water run off of it so the roads don't flood. And it's a mishmash of things. Every road's a little bit different, but a few of the roads have had extensive work done to them so far.
No, our model is kind of, leave it like we found it. We really will try our best to work with all agencies to ensure that we get it back to the state that it was in. We do it on a very regular basis. I just our guys come in on outages, and I'll be straight up. They got big trucks, which they don't bring out to your island, but I just dealt with one the other day, an outage follow-up that required, quite extensive repairs in the fellow's front lawn. But that's just part of us doing business. And so we have a process to close that loop and ensure we go back and work with the customer to put it back the way we found it. So we will definitely be utilizing that on the island.
Great. And then should we assume that if an individual property owner has an issue that they should reach out to Tricia during this project? I know we had one property owner reach out to me last week that said there was an LCEC crew working in front of their property doing something, and I think knocked some trees down or removed trees, and so there was an issue, and I'm not sure, Tricia, if he reached out to you or not.
Yes, that has been resolved. I spoke with Ken several times and that issue's been resolved.
Okay, great. But similarly,
And so-
if people are having issues during, this, multi-year thing, should they reach out to you, Tricia?
Yes, they certainly can reach out to me. And if you get emails to you, you can just send me an email. As always, if it's an emergency and can't get a hold of me, we always have customer service 24/7 and they can get to me. So, yeah.
And another item is, I spoke with a couple of the construction guys the other day, and we anticipate having a formal coordinator. There'll be a construction lead on the island at all times, pretty much, once we start going, and you'll be giving him as a point of contact as well. You're probably familiar, you might be familiar with Justin or Brian Sorge. They both have worked extensively on the island. And so I anticipate, like I said, them opening up their contact information as well.
Cool. Any other questions out there from anyone?
Tricia, I do see a few folks in the chat asking for your contact information. So I think maybe as a follow-up,
Yes, I
make
did
sure
send it out to some individually. I thought that might have been to everyone. And I think when you're going to send it out, you have a way.
Yeah,
to send it.
we'll come up with a communication from UCCA and we'll post it on the UCCA website. And for any of you that are in the homeowners Facebook group, if you do a search for Tricia, you'll find I actually posted her contact info a few months ago for anyone to have. So but we'll make sure that everyone's got it. So there are no pain points through this.
Yes, and Swin, I'll give you the backup information in case I am in meetings. There's some type of emergency. I don't want anyone getting frustrated with us. So we do have other avenues, but certainly you can use me as a first line of defense with a backup.
Bless your hearts for starting this in first quarter as you're going to hit spring break and everything. That's going to be something else. So any other questions from anyone out there? We have the team on now. The best time.
And should we need to get together in the future halfway through the project or just depending on how things go in Swin, we're here for the duration. So this isn't just one and done. We'll continue to be in contact through the duration.
Awesome.
So we can do this again in a couple months if needed.
Well, it's exciting that we're getting this infrastructure improvement. It's I think we all know it's much needed, and also thank you very much for looking at the environmental aspect of it, because most of us are here because of that part of the special part of the island. All right.
Well,
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
Yeah. So if there are no other
Thank you,
questions,
guys.
we'll wrap it up here.
Hey, Swin, Christy still has her hand up. I don't know if she has a question or not.
Chrissy, are you just waving to everyone?
I'm just saying, hey, I don't know. Am I supposed to get rid of that? How do I do that? Just click on it.
It's all right. You're just
Yeah.
high-fiving everyone.
Hey,
It's all good.
hey.
All right. Well, if that's it, we'll wrap this up. And for anyone that's joined, if you know someone who would want to hear this, it was recorded. As island internet isn't great everywhere, I know it'll take probably a few days for David to get this posted to the website, but it will be on the UCCA website so anyone can rewatch and hear all the questions and see the presentation.
Sounds
Thank
great.
you. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks, Swin.
Thank you, Tricia and Marshall and everyone.
Thank you all very much.